Yeah, and even when you're communicating data, when we were talking about how to actually do that, all of that comes down to the context, because at the end of the day, if you show, oh, utilization in a building is up 30% year on year, the best thing that can happen is someone will ask you why. So unless you've got anything context-wise to back that up, you haven't really done your job, because the best outcome has happened and you've got nothing to back it up with. So look at what either correlation or causation is happening, and then seeing what you can actually do to move on, because the why and the how is what ends up making a decision later on.
Can you drill down on that a little bit? Because, one thing I've learned from you is some language and ways of looking at things in terms of data. And a specific thing for me is this concept of outliers or outlying events. Can you touch on that a little bit?
People always remind me of cats a bit when they're looking at dashboards. I think people, especially now that a lot of people are working from home, so they might be physically separated from whatever they're looking at, but the notion of just wanting to feel more in control by looking at numbers going up and down, when really you're just passively looking at the output of a system, you're not actively making decisions. So the concept of outliers is sort of, because there's always this middle section when you look at utilization in a building. So that's how many people are in the space versus how many people the space can hold. And for most organizations, the sort of natural middle band of that doesn't matter, because there's always going to be flux of people moving around the space, or the difference between a Tuesday and a Thursday. That doesn't actually matter. But the idea of looking at when that's really low or really high, so there's lots of different statistical ways you can determine outliers, and then looking at what's happening to make it much lower or much higher. And often that will tell you more about a story and what's happening. And looking at outliers is one of the ways that I always tell people to look for take-home points to tell people about data sets, because it prompts you to look at all the different contextual factors that are at play that can then help you with the more middle-of-the-road measures as well.
So if you see an outlier event in your data, what's the next step? Is that where a human gets involved and literally just says, well, why did this happen? Let's investigate?
Yeah, so there's a few ways you could do it. Honestly, there's some people that would want to just use AI, the magical AI box, to do this. But I think in a lot of cases, just asking a human is probably a better case, especially when there's so many front of house customer service people that you could ask that would tell you, and then you can use that data to input to another system. Because you might think, oh, it's fantastic, we've got such a huge spike in utilization today, but then it just turns out there was a tour group coming through. Or it might look like the utilization was really low on a certain week, and it's just, oh no, that was when bushfires came through, so everyone was working from home because it wasn't safe to be in the office. You could spend a lot of time having a lot of integrations going through that, but I think having humans assisting the algorithm rather than working against each other or trying one to take over from the other entirely, I think a hybrid model really is what will help give the most context, because you're allowing humans to do what humans can do best. And then you're allowing any sort of prediction model you have to do the best it can do as well with that input.
Yeah. And setting rules and conditions, basic logic around outliers can probably achieve a lot of value, but really asking why and putting it into context with something that humans know that might not even be in a record of truth to connect to. Like the tour group, maybe that's not documented anywhere. So we can't get that data automatically. It has to be someone like, oh, that's right, it was a school excursion actually, and we had 30 kids walk through that day.